Hello everyone, welcome aboard. My name is Simon and we are the Whales of Wall Street. Today we're going into Solve.Care, that's Solve on the exchange, SOLVE. So we've covered this project a couple of times, including an intro video. If you haven't seen that, please do go check that out. I'll leave a link at the end of this one. So this one really is of interest to me. Obviously I've talked about previously in regards to the digital transformations of pretty much many aspects of our world's life in today's world, And if you think about like where I've talked about financial institutions and especially banks, obviously we're all on smartphones now. The banks locally, certainly here in the UK, are closing down left, right and centre. We'd covered that before in a previous video as well. And it's always like, obviously we had the pandemic last year. And all these things that are sort of coming out to play right now are all things that we were against for maybe the last 5-10 years. But now, because obviously a problem has occurred, they've already had the solution, and now they can integrate these solutions, which is backed by phenomenal amounts of money, both in pharmaceutical, we won't go there, financial institutions as well, and also healthcare. And you bear in mind, last year across the world, of course, most hospitals shut down. And it was an emphasis to say, actually, how much money has our economy and our taxpayers' money been saved from closing these hospitals down? But then equally on the flip coin, it's how many people have missed out on the opportunity of healthcare in this period of time. There are many, many people that obviously put off going to hospital or doctors because of the situation last year. But I think it goes deeper than that. I think that it's always been an issue in regards to how many people get seen or don't get seen or can't be bothered to go and get seen because of the time it takes or the lack of care potentially. I'm not saying that they don't care about them, but when you consider the business model of a hospital, and at the end of the day, hospitals are part of an entity, for example, in the UK, public health, that is an entity of the government, it's a business. It has to essentially make profit at some point, to cater the economy and cater being able to float itself, right? So that's why medicine and pharmaceuticals are very important in the back end of like machinery, tablets, medicine and things like this to keep it all going, and research development and so on and so forth. So there's loads of aspects of a hospital that people don't even think. In fact, my dear father, he worked for many aspects of governments and things over the years. He used to work in the public health, and could mention easily that there was a couple of hospitals where he would go there and say, oh, if you turn your temperature down by 2 degrees, you'll save £1.5 million a year just on that. And they weren't interested because they needed the budgets for next year, right? So there's a whole big consensus around hospitals and medical care at the moment where there's a lot of question marks and what is actually sustainable and what is actually the most effective way forward. So going back to my point about medical care and everything like this, when you think about the apps that we've now got on a phone, so me privately through work, I have like Babylon, and I've used that for like the last few months now, where I've never really go to the doctor, right? Because probably the same reasons I just mentioned, like everyone else. One, I can't be bothered, and two, I don't really ever go there unless I think there's something seriously wrong with me or about to be seriously wrong, right? I don't go there for sniffles, coughs, like many people do and sit in hospitals with colds and stuff and think the worst case scenario, and then they're actually absolutely fine. So there's all of that aspect, and I can't bother. I'll just rest up and get on with it. But of course, there's a lot of people out there that have serious condition or something that's underlying that they need to have seen, and that's when you get the crossover, as we just mentioned a minute ago, of people missing out. What does this kind of solution of Solve.Care help the world? Well, I'm going to throw some numbers out here, just from the American perspective at the moment. $141 billion market, right, for digital and IT healthcare in the US, and it's due to grow 17.4% over the next 5 years. So it's a substantial amount of money, that is 141 billion. But the healthcare market in general, for the US alone, right, and bear in mind this is just the US, okay, but it's still massive, $5.7 trillion is the healthcare market in the US. Now that probably also includes like pharmaceutical institutions and things like this, research, development, etc. Healthcare insurance in general, 1.7 trillion. Okay, now we'll think about that insurance. We'll come back to that point in a minute. Blockchain healthcare, which is more important in this topic, is around just slightly under at the moment, but they anticipate $890 million will be essentially the market value of blockchain healthcare by 2023. What does that mean? What does blockchain technology mean in healthcare? Well, we've already talked about supply chain methods, medicine, tokenomics of healthcare, and especially with Solve.Care as an example of how the tokenomics work. As I said, go and check out the intro video. So there's all these applications, but blockchain just has such an infrastructure of AI, machine-to-machine learning, supply chain mechanism, healthcare smart contracts to ensure that you're not defrauding the system, i.e. when we link back to healthcare insurance, reducing that premium, reducing healthcare insurance as a general need, but also bringing that aspect of cost to the medical society. Now, in the UK, we're fortunate to have the National Health Service. I don't know how much longer that will last, because I believe that the two-tier system is coming, basic universal income, all part of the agenda programme. This isn't conspiracy. This is something that is delved in. Companies like Serco looking to privatise the healthcare. So all of a sudden, you'll have like a public healthcare system still, but for like the lower end spectrum of how sick is this world? It's mental. So for the lower end of the population, and then if you're in private working conditions, you'll have access to things like we're talking about here. This is unfortunately the way the world is going. Whether you like it or not, this is what is going to happen. Okay, this is not me being gospel. This is just factual, based on trend, based on what I know in inside information in the industries. And also what you can see, like in everything else with blockchain and technology, AI, transition, machine-to-machine learning, supply chain, cryptocurrency, cashless society, all of this stuff is happening. We've been warned about it for years, but blockchain makes it possible, right? In some good ways, of course, because Solve.Care takes that principle of negativity and makes it a positive. It gives access that if you don't have private healthcare everywhere, you can still have access, good fundamental healthcare through this kind of application and blockchain process. Okay, I don't want to rant on too much, because I appreciate I spend some time on these videos sometimes when I think about them passionately and interestingly, and I hope you find them informative. So with opening up these healthcare aspects around the world, it also defines, you know, when you like go abroad. So I live in the UK obviously, but you can go abroad, you have like the EU health card. So if something goes wrong with you, you can try and avoid some of the insurance aspects. And that isn't, it's like a little passport for healthcare. Essentially your government is paying like a rebate in the background to cover you abroad, as well as your health insurance and that kind of thing, like that you pay for travel insurance and stuff, right? So there's two aspects to it to ensure that you get healthcare if something went wrong. But a lot of people don't have that. A lot of countries don't have that. Solve.Care allows you to essentially go around the world utilizing services wherever you are. Me, right, for example, I had sinusitis, okay? Don't worry, I had all the tests and all that nonsense for the other, you know what. And basically, I was like, it was like midnight, and I was like, oh, I'll book an appointment tomorrow. And one was at 1 a.m. And I tend to stay up late, whether I'm doing videos or other stuff, right? So it doesn't really bother me. But I had a physician appointment with someone, an absolutely fantastic doctor across the other side of the world at 1 in the morning. So there's no panicking, there was no worry. I got my prescription ordered for me in that 5-minute conversation, based on my symptoms, based on like with the video and everything, symmetrical, facial, etc., blah blah, symptoms and whatnot. And I picked up my prescription the next day. Then I found out I could get free delivery on my next appointment I had for a different set of antibiotics and whatnot. And they just arrived the next day. It's incredible. And this is the kind of access that people are going to have through this kind of app. So it's doing it worldwide. So you could be abroad and still access your local pharmacies, not pay over the odds, using tokenomics of the Solve token and everything like this to be able to access this kind of aspect. Let's just listen to this guy here. Please do check out this video as well. It doesn't have many views, and I'm very surprised, and I think it's just an awareness situation with Solve.Care, because it is really important. Let's just take a listen to this guy, for example, just as a quick pinpoint of healthcare and people missing out.
And I should point out that that's not just an issue for India, it's an issue for every part of the world. I can assure you that rural Kentucky in the United States looks no different than Bihar or Uttar Pradesh in terms of access to physicians and the wait time involved and how long you have to wait to get a specialty care appointment. Here are the facts. 1 out of 3 patients will wait a month to get an appointment with a specialist in the United States. Those numbers are similar or worse in developing countries, but those are the numbers.
Now, I just want to stop that there because that kind of like emphasized the point that was made about people missing out on potential healthcare. Now we've all got smartphones. Use that principle of like banking and everything else that you do on your smartphone, social media, communication. Why not have your healthcare on it? Don't get me wrong. Like obviously you want to go and see someone physically if you think something serious that is happening to you, of course. But you can still get an initial diagnosis, and they'll advise you anyway, probably to go to the doctor. But there's all these great aspects, and what I loved about what you just said there, and what blockchain and crypto is all about, is the non-developed countries, if you want to call them that, are able now to be on par with everyone because tokenomics makes it so cheap and accessible. And it's beautiful. I love it. Why should, just because you're born in another country, should you be reflected upon what your economy is situated in? Why isn't the world fairer? Well, we can go around that question many millions of times and for centuries. But now has come a critical switching point where people are starting to have more power, and technologies like this are giving people ability, confidence, trust, and more importantly, the healthcare that they deserve as a human being. That every single person in this world should have a fundamental right from the day they are born to the day they die to have access to. This is why I like projects like this. This is why I'm so behind blockchain and I'm so behind decentralization. Sick and tired of pharmaceutical companies, medical institutions, including hospitals, taking the biscuit, okay, financially. Taking the biscuit of people's healthcare, poor healthcare because there's too many people going through the system. Now you have multitude of specialists, both physicians, consultants, pharmaceutical people. They're all within these apps now. You can access whichever one you want. Don't go mad because obviously there is a payment structure to it and you'll get charged for it. But you just imagine what this kind of thing can do. And that's why I'm so behind projects like this. So I said, please do, I know it's an hour long, but you can always skip through some of it. But it's really interesting, that point as well. These guys are up for rewards. I'll just throw this one in there before we go into the chart. So really, really good aspect of being one of the best healthcare apps in the world. Okay, there's a lot of them out there, as I mentioned, like for example, one being Bupa's Babylon that I have currently personally. And of course, these upcoming ones, more importantly, using blockchain, which these traditional companies are not doing. This website here is fantastic, digitalauthority.me. This article is from January. So, take that into consideration, but there's some fantastic information here on how blockchain technology will improve the customer's outlook. These things like this, the Apple iWatch and things like this, where AI, smartphone, 5G technology, where we talked about previously about IOTA and IoTX and all these AI applications with healthcare, ambulances, operations, sensors within you telling you what's wrong with you or what is about to happen to you. Don't worry, ambulance all the way. All of this is integrated. That's my whole point. This whole thing is integrated. And when you got an aspect, something like Solve.Care on top of that, you're getting a whole entire ecosystem of a new healthcare system that's fairer for everyone and easier, more accessible. Okay, so they're the kind of few points that I wanted to push ahead to really emphasize just how much money is in this industry, okay, and how much money we could be saving as economy, how much money we could be spending less with tax and into the real aspects of where it should be spent. Improving the world. That is what blockchain and crypto is all about. Okay, so I wanted to emphasize that. Keep an eye on their Twitter for all the updates. So yeah, Latin America just launched, which is fantastic, their distribution aspect of that. Great coverage over back in India of the telehealth exchange network being launched there as well. It will continue to expand. Furthermore, update recently on Solve Kucoin, adding finally the USDT pairing on Kucoin. So we'll go into the chart now. So this is accessed today, I believe. Let's ping that up. Hopefully you found this interesting. If you have done, please press that like button. Subscribe to the channel if you have not done so already. And press that notification bell to get all the notifications of all the awesome videos we have coming away. So now we've got that out of the way, let's go to play in the chart. So The chart here, guys, now we've emphasized a few points behind this project. Of course, we had the big launch today. It flew up. In fact, I can tell you exactly in a second how much it flew up once I get my correct items here, if I can find it. There we go. So we've gone from the opening, I believe, of around here. We shot up a good 20 odd % today. We've had the retracement down, the sell off and back again. So good day's work for Solve.Care. It hasn't really moved us too much in the emphasis of where the chart's moving. Please, when you're looking at charts, okay, and projects like this, I mean, you can sit here and go, oh, it's a dead coin. It's gone all the way from like up these areas to all the way down. Well, we're still catching up back up to these levels. We had an all-time high up here of around 57-60 cents, which I think is quite massive, really, in terms of where we are now. So there's plenty of room to move. The MACD is completely narrowing. However, of course, take into consideration yesterday and today with probably the announcement upcoming of the exchange pairing on Kucoin, the selling volume has reduced, the RSI is picking up. So that's obviously activity from the last few days. So just bear that in mind when you're investing, that we might still have a potential bearish movement because we are still in that process. It just so happens that we've had the good news that's pushing it up. So we're just taking the chart mechanism in our minds, okay, before we go mad. So what I would suggest here is that we're still fighting for these particular support lines around these levels. We drew these two yellow lines in past to say that if we can get back with a close over this particular bottom yellow line, we can start tracing back upwards to the previous resistance and support mechanisms up here. But we're still in a bit of a situation where we need to catch up a bit and start pushing positive volume in there. I put in a couple of buy points. We did hit one of them. I did have one lower. The reason I put that in there is just because we had this big tail up. And if you look here, for example, at one of these, I'm just going to go from here because it's a bit more accurate. So we had a good 160% increase in intake from around that sort of July time. In fact, I usually get it from down here. So let's just do it from there. 191%, which is very respectable. And of course, with the Bitcoin day we had around here as well, it's kind of ignored that and come back up. So that's really positive. People have obviously taken advantage of the drops down there. But if we just take it back from up here and we go back down to, I'm not going to use this level because I think that was just part of, well, actually, to be fair, we could do, and that's still in that principle, a 50% reduction, which is quite standard across most charts. But if we just go from like maybe an average between this point and this point, so between sort of 40 and 50% retracement has already occurred, and we're already back up here against 34-35% from this previous top end up here on the 20th of August. So when we're talking about prices, guys, for those that are listening and not watching, that was a previous high around the 20th of August, which was around 11 cents. We have retraced since then at current point in time to around 8 cents. So between the 20th of July and the 18th of August, we had a 191% increase. That was from everyone, the 0.03, it's pretty much 4 cents, all the way up to 11 cents. So there's a really good progression there. And I do believe we'll come back. And if we're going along fib retracement levels, just as a brief intro, we could be smashing through that $2 mark towards the end of this year. Forget the actual aspect of what the project is for a second. If we're going based on chart movements and chart investment, yeah, that is definitely a potential target for us to reach. Is it impossible? No, absolutely not. The previous all-time high, as we mentioned, was around that just under 60 cents. We will definitely get back up to there, in my opinion, maybe around mid to end of October before we start absolutely smashing it in November, December. And I think there's a lot of countries talking about lockdowns again. You know, think about things in the real world when it comes to these kind of projects. There are more lockdown potential conversations. So that could encourage more people to go, oh, do you know what? I'm just going to do this kind of thing moving forward. More and more people get awareness of healthcare apps, digital medical care, generally at the foundation level. Obviously, if there's something serious with you, this isn't not necessarily financial advice either. This is not healthcare advice. Maybe we have to throw that disclaimer in for this one as well. But obviously, if it's something serious you think it is, you must go and do what you need to do. You know, Well, that's not what we're saying is you don't bother, you just call people up all the time. But for general aspects of things, I did mine for my hamstring. Okay, so I play football, not very well these days because I keep getting injured. Maybe it's an age thing. But I had a whole consultant's video phone element of, the structure of my leg, what was the problem, where were the pain estimates. And of course, the difference with a physical exam is obviously someone can feel that part of the leg and go, yeah, no, it's definitely that. But from what I was telling them and the video that I was showing them of my leg and everything like that, it was like, yeah, no, can you do this? Can you do that? Can you do this? Can you do that? We went through like several exercise methods in this like 20-30 minute consultation, and it was done. And then my physiotherapist was booked for the next week. Obviously, a lot of people don't have healthcare, but it's that principle of ease of access and maybe finding out brief information so you know what action you need to do next. And of course, they might recommend you to go to a physical doctor, of course. So just bear that in mind. That sort of aspect of the healthcare. So that kind of wraps up Solve, guys. I wanted to give you a nice little update, bit of emphasis around the healthcare system and digital and blockchain aspect. We're up weekly 8% on Solve, which is fantastic. Monthly is finally just caught up, so I'm really starting to potentially see a bullish momentum. Like I said, if we need to close or try and close above this kind of level at 0.0859, so pretty much 8.6 cents, for us to be able to start tailing up, in my opinion. And I think more news coming out, more adoption. Of course, this thing's going to absolutely fly. The potential target of $2 towards the end of this year, or certainly into next year if the bull run continues through that period. But yeah, I think everything's hunky-dory. What I do love about this chart, certainly since the 13th of August to around about now, it has a very small downward trend, very small. In fact, I'll just draw that so we know what I'm looking at. You can see it's not quite straight, but it's not equally as big. So again, with this big boost up here, I was expecting a bit more volatility downwards, but it seems to be really resisting that. And as I've said, the MACD is turning into a positive aspect. The shallowing here of the histogram is going pale red, which means just maybe we may be pushing either to a potential another downward trend to this maybe 0.072, or even down to here. In fact, I'm just going to move my buy order from this point here slightly higher, I think, to maybe around about here. So maybe just over 6.5 cents, because we might have this repetitive sector here. However, if we close above here, like I said, I think that we can start testing those extra lines up here and push through that previous resistant bar of 10 cents. Get a close over there, and then we're upwards. And I truly believe towards the end of this month, into maybe the middle of October, we will start going well above that 10-cent mark. You heard it here first. So guys, I hope you found this informative. Please do check out our other videos. I'll leave a couple of links to the end of this one. Notice as well in our description, we've got all the links to our social media platforms. Please join us on there as well. Let us know what you think in the comments below. If you are holding Solve, what you think of the medical industry going into digital blockchain. How have you been affected by things like the pandemic and everything like this in terms of your localization of medical care? Let us know. This is all part of the research and feedback as well to hopefully encourage better videos in the future. Guys, thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you in the next video. Take care. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.